Hello, my name is Chris Hopkinson, and I'm a professor of geography and environment at the University of Lethbridge. I'm also director of the Artemis Lab, where we own and operate a range of LiDAR sensors for monitoring ecosystem properties and change. Of note, we fly missions across Canada using a Teledyne optic multispectral LiDAR system that allows us to map terrain and vegetation cover in three-dimensional high resolution using 3 laser wavelengths. Over the next few minutes, I'll briefly introduce LiDAR and how we use it to map landscape-scale biomass attributes. Well, first, LiDAR is the acronym Light Detection and Ranging, whereby laser pulses are emitted towards a target. Then, using our knowledge of the speed of light, the round-trip travel time of the pulse and its reflection is recorded to calculate distance. A scanner is employed to redirect those pulses across the target's surface to generate a three-dimensional point cloud. Most commercial airborne LiDAR mapping systems operate just outside the visible range in the near-infrared to shortwave infrared, and in addition to a 3D map of the Earth's surface, we also generate a laser-based intensity image. The light energy returned to the sensor will be a function of the surface geometry, contact area, and its reflectance. Over structured targets like buildings or trees, the emitted laser pulse will produce an elongated waveform corresponding to the time over which the pulse interacts with those surfaces. In most commercial sensors, this response is broken down into discrete returns to produce a point cloud. In the case of vegetation, the foliage density, structure, and height strongly influence the point cloud geometry. Raw point clouds can be visualized in 3 dimensions and colorized by a range of attributes like elevation, intensity, or return number. However, the primary derivative for most LiDAR acquisitions is the terrain or digital elevation model. In forestry and most ecosystem research, of course, vegetation structure is equally important, and this is where LiDAR excels by providing detailed canopy models. And with the latest multispectral LiDAR systems, we can produce composite images based on the 3-channel laser intensity. Using one of our recent multispectral LiDAR data collections over the Oldman River floodplain here in southern Alberta, we can visualize some of these point cloud attributes at the landscape scale. At left, we see the laser return number, in the center we have true RGB colorization, and at right we have elevation and intensity. In combination, such LiDAR datasets provide a rich, 3-dimensional and thematic data environment for feature classification and modeling. Focusing on laser pulse intensity, here we see the grayscale response over the same wooded and bare-ground landscape for all 3 laser channels of the Titan multispectral scanner. For applications that require vegetation structure, like biomass, carbon, habitat, merchantable volume, or wildfire fuel, a common approach is to extract statistical descriptors of the point cloud, such as height percentiles. Here, for example, we see how the 75th percentile, or P75, can be extracted from a hypothetical LiDAR sampling plot. Using field plot data, we can develop regression models against these point cloud metrics to predict a number of forest attributes, such as biomass, as you can see for an area of the Taiga Plains in the Northwest Territories. And if we have LiDAR time series data captured over naturally growing forest stands, then we can develop biomass growth curves, as we see here for the berm sites in Saskatchewan. Combining percentile metrics with 3-channel laser intensity creates new data structures for vegetation attribute mapping and modeling. For example, at top left we see height profiles for different canopy types in the near-infrared channel, and in the 2 lower graphs we see the deviations within each of the green and shortwave infrared channels. One way to capitalize on this rich information content is to generate vertical profiles of the normalized intensity ratios. Plotting these as voxels illustrates both vertical canopy structure and changing foliage reflectance properties throughout the canopy. As examples, here we see a study by Brenduza et al. That used the combined point cloud structure and intensity data to map species at the individual crown level. While here we see a data fusion model from the McDermott lab that adds in additional data metrics to model ground-level coarse woody debris. To conclude my introduction to airborne LiDAR forest attribute mapping, I would like to summarize some of my lab's work over our Vivian Forest study site within the York Regional Forest in Ontario. We started collecting LiDAR here in 2000 using an Optec ALTM 1210 sensor, and now have an archive spanning 20 years and every generation of LiDAR sensors since. Here we see the canopy height model time series that illustrates the influence of growth, stand treatments such as thinning, seasonal phenology, and differences in LiDAR hardware. Some of these influences are more easy to pick out, however, if we examine the changes in the point cloud cross-section over a mature conifer plantation. We do see the growth of the canopy, but we also see the gradual densification of the point cloud as instruments become faster and more capable. If we focus attention on the small, rapidly growing stand at left, we see how the point cloud captures the change in canopy height through time. However, it is obvious from this progression that by focusing on the upper canopy surface, a lot of the internal forest structure is missed, hence illustrating the value of extracting as much information from the point cloud as is possible. Finally, even without point cloud structure information, we are able to visualize differences in land cover and forest type using multispectral Lidar intensity alone. The image at right is a false color composite of the 3-channel intensity bands, and at left we see intensity signatures for dominant land covers within the study area. Applying these signatures to a simple maximum likelihood classifier allows us to map out these land covers and separate the dominant forest types. So, this concludes my very brief introduction to airborne LiDAR for vegetation and forest attribute extraction, and I do hope it has been informative. If you wish to dig deeper into the concepts or case studies touched upon here, here is a list of the sources or related studies. And finally, I'd like to thank you for watching, and as well I must thank the various funding agencies and partners that have supported our research over the years. In particular, a special debt of gratitude goes out to all the students and fellows who have kept us at the cutting edge, as well as my 2 most supportive LiDAR research partners, Dr. Laura Chasma and Teledyne Optic. Thank you.